You know, guys, I didn't know I needed this pairing until we got it today in this episode. But now that we've got it, I want more of it because it was really fun. It kind of struck me as I was watching the episode that Sid and Iris literally haven't met each other this entire time somehow. So it was quite fun to see that happen, and I kind of hope it happens more in the future, even though we know it will with how our episode ended today. But you guys know the drill. Welcome back to the channel today as we talk about the Eminence in Shadow, episode 18. And you know, after we opened Rose's eyes up to the truth last week, I thought we'd focus on her today. But instead, we decided to focus on the Bushin Festival, which I'm alright with, to be honest. We still got multiple episodes left to deal with Rose, so we'll do that then. And on that note, let's get into this episode of the Eminence in Shadow today, episode 18. So our episode today begins a little bit kinky, as we just hear, when emotion provokes interpersonal conflict. Generally, time is enough to solve the problem. Therefore, ignore it and it'll just go away. That's the theory I'd like to advocate for, but it looks like my sister just hasn't had quite enough time. And it's here as we see Claire straddling Sid. She says, "Do you know what I thought about while I waited for you in front of your dorm?" As she starts choking him when he says, "No, I don't." As she tells him, "I was beating you to a bloody pulp in my mind." Over and over, again and again. And for every second I waited, my rage doubled in size. As Sid says, "Today, I learned that some anger actually increases with time. Who'da thunk it?" As she tells Sid, "You promised me that we'd go back home together during the summer holidays." "You always do this, Sid. You break your promises to me like they mean nothing to you at all." And as she loosens the grip on his neck, she says, "This is your last chance." As she pulls out a ticket to the reserved seating area at the Bushin Festival. As she says, "I'm gonna let you have this, so watch the fights and learn." As Sid asks her, "Wait a minute, weren't you sitting out the festival this year?" As she strengthens her grip and tells him, "I was chosen to represent the Academy in Princess Rose's place. Don't try to tell me you didn't know that, right?" As she tells Sid, "I will be the champion, so you better be there to see it." And you know, guys, I guess just straddling your family members while choking them out is just commonplace in the Kagano family. Who are we to judge this extremely weird scene? Why not? But it's here we transition to Alexia actually going to meet Beta, but the thing is, she's gone. As she gets there and the place is empty, as she's told, she said she would be spending a while abroad doing research, so she dipped out. And as Alexia finds a yellow envelope on the table, it reads, "Oriana Kingdom Principal Enterprises and Religious Organizations." I don't know why that was so hard to get out. "And their various relationships with the monarchy." As Alexia says, "Wow, so she's graciously blessing me with that information, huh?" She really is insufferable. But it's here Alexia says, "I hate to break it to you, but I don't need your pity. I refuse to pity myself anymore." And I do like this scene a bit. It's in the grand scheme of things of this episode, not that important, but for Alexia as a character, I do think it's important. It shows that she's grown to some extent, and that's a good thing. But it's time to transition to the Bushin Festival, baby, as we see our boy Sid is sitting in the hyper VIP seating. Quite different, you know. And who should he happen to be sitting by but Iris? As Iris asks him, "And you are?" As Sid says, "My humble name is Sid Kagano, and I appear to have had the wrong seat. Let me get the hell out of here. Miss me with this bullshit." As Iris says, "Wait a minute, you're Claire's younger brother and the boy from that incident." As Iris tells him, "You're definitely at the correct seat, because I assume Claire gave you her ticket." As our boy Sid reluctantly sits down. As Iris tells him, "So Sid Kagano, I've owed you an apology for some time now. I'm sorry for all the trouble I caused you during the Zenin incident. We've already ended talks settling the matter between the royal family and that of the Marquises. But as Alexia's older sister, I hope you will be willing to accept my personal apology." And as everyone starts flipping out around them, Sid's like, "This is the absolute worst thing for my background character persona. Lift your fucking head up." As she tells him, "I hope you won't let the incident sour your friendship with her." As Sid's just like, "Friendship? All I did was pick up the coins she tossed at me." Like when you throw a stick for a dog and tell it to go fetch. Woof woof. As Iris says, oh, so you two played with a dog together. And Sid's like, not really, but never mind. Let's go with that. As Iris says, my sister's very happy to have made such a good friend. And Sid says, I kind of doubt that. And it's here as the conversation shifts to the festival itself. Sid asks Iris, so, are there any fighters, in your opinion, worth watching? For instance, that guy that Annerose will be fighting in the first round. Mundane Man, was it? She says, I haven't seen any of his matches, so I couldn't say, as the girl next to her says, he moves fast. That's pretty much it. As Sid's like, yes, I've cultivated Mundane's reputation to perfection. But it's here Iris says something interesting, as she says, there's another person to watch out for, although she's not participating. There's an elf swordmaster hailed as the war goddess. She was the first champion of the Bushin Festival, and apparently she's here in the capital. Every single warrior fighting in the main tournament will be paying careful attention to what Lady Beatrix is up to. As Sid's just like, wait a minute, Beatrix? I figured she was pretty tough, but I didn't realize she was famous. As Sid says, alright, I'm gonna go powder my nose, guys, as he slips away. And as we see him slip away, we find the woman herself walking as well. As Sid realizes there's someone strong nearby. If we were two Eminences, we would exchange some super cool dialogue, even in the briefest encounter, like a badass. As we suddenly hear Sid, and we see that Beatrix is right behind him. As she asks Sid, were you ignoring me? And he says, no, I wasn't ignoring you. Really? Yes. Really? Yes. Really? Yes. As she asks him, so have you run into an elf that looks like me since the last time we've met? As he says, nope, no elves that look like you. I'd certainly remember them and not be hiding them in secret. No. As she says, too bad. A lot of people come to this event, so I thought I might find her here. As Sid asks her what's in her bag, and she says, oh, I bought these, but I got too many, so here, you can have one. As Sid's like, cool, to show my gratitude, here, you can have one from my bag. And with that, they just walk off. Now, I'm sure plenty of you are wondering, Gary, why did you include this really random scene? And I'm glad you asked, because I've noticed something with this series that even if a scene seems really random and out of place, it somehow comes full circle with this show. I don't know how, but it does. And I just have a feeling that this is going to be an important scene for some reason. Also, I kind of wanted to take note of how similar these two are. It's kind of wild. Even walking around with sandwich bags, like, okay. That's one thing the strong in this world do. They're all just, like, spaced out weirdos, apparently. That's the common trait. But it's here, as we transition back to Iris, we see the asshat himself has landed, as he says, Princess Iris, however are you doing? As she tells him, these seats are reserved for students. And he responds back, the young people would learn a lot from seeing me and you interact in public. As she asks him, so, are you here alone today? And he says, yes. Unfortunately, our esteemed king is feeling out of sorts today. He is bound and determined to attend tomorrow, so I do hope you'll forgive him. As he says, incidentally, is your father, King Klaus, absent today as well? As she tells him, oh, he said he would come tomorrow as well. As Asshat's just like, what a coincidence. But it's here all of a sudden, we actually transition to the fight as Asshat says, is that the infamous Annerose niche Chien? As Iris says, yes, she is currently the fencer with the most momentum in this tournament. As Iris says, a fencer of her caliber would be a great benefit to the Midgard Kingdom. As Asshat says, does the Midgard Kingdom not have more than enough excellent Dark Knights already? On the other hand, my kingdom is obsessed with the childish idea of employing dancing knights. As Iris tells him, that's what our alliance is for. But if necessary, our powerful knights will dispel the darkness that enfolds your nation, a very not subtle threat. As he tells her, my, how comforting. But it's here he asks her, what do you think of her opponent, that mundane fellow? As she says, this will be the first time I've seen him fight, but he doesn't seem that strong. But then she adds, this mundane man, however, he's a little unnerving. He certainly doesn't look strong, but there's one thing about him that you would never see in a weak fighter. As she says, absolute confidence. There is no uncertainty in his eyes. Those are the eyes of a man who can see a path to total victory. As Asshat says, I would have no idea of that, if for no other reason that I know nothing of swordplay. But then he says, I see I can't fool the great princess Iris, and says, forgive me. The sword is looked down upon in the Oriana Kingdom. In all honesty, I do have some proficiency with a blade. As she says, some proficiency, huh? And I have a feeling he's actually secretly a master swordsman. You know, I think we're just setting that up right now. But it's here we actually transition to the fight itself, as Annerose and Sid are squaring up, as she says, the secret to this man's strength is his absolute speed, and he hasn't even shown us the full extent of it. But his sword technique is no better than an amateur, and his stance is a mess. As the match begins and she gets right in his face saying, if I can stop him from moving, he'll have no way to beat me. As she launches attack after attack and says, as long as I don't give him a chance to make use of his speed, sooner or later, I will win. And it's here she thinks she gets an opening on him. She thinks she's won. As Sid vanishes behind her and tells her that was an after image. As he sends her flying into the air. Literally just knocking her around like a doll as he slams her into the ground. As she says, if he had put magic into that, I'd probably be dead now. As she says, okay, I'll admit it. You're strong. Strong beyond all reason. You've surpassed me in power, speed, everything. I only have one option left. And as Sid attacks her, she thinks she has him in a counter. But Sid pivots back and she realizes, I thought I matched his attack, but he was matching his attack to mine instead. And as Sid does one clean swing of his sword, we see that the match is decided. And it's here as we transition back to Asshat and Iris, he says, absolute confidence, huh? Your instincts were spot on, Your Highness. As Iris says, I find it extremely hard to believe that a dark knight of his caliber has gone unnoticed for so long. As she says, I've never seen anyone swing a sword like that. But his blade was swift, sure, and sharp. And most of all, it was beautiful. As Asshat says, the next round will be you against this mundane, won't it? Are you confident you can beat him? As she says, I'm certainly no match for him in beauty of swordplay, but it's not beauty that determines the winner of a duel. If that was the full extent of his power, and he hasn't reached my level yet. As she says, there's a good chance he's hiding something. That's why he disguised his stance and his technique to win his way through the tournament. I don't know what it is he's hiding, but I will cut him down, secrets and all. I do hate to lose, after all. And it's here as we see them go their separate ways, we get a really interesting scene, honestly, that I imagine would be setting up a season 2, as we hear Asshat say, find out where Mundane Man came from. I suspect he's a resident of the underworld. If the lawless city is backing him, things could get difficult. As he says, I'd like to crush any potential problems before they arise. And it's here as we transition to the man in question himself. We see him get called out by Annerose that tells him flat out, I admit defeat. As she tells him, I left my home country to make myself stronger, and I thought that I had improved since then. But at some point, I developed an overinflated opinion of myself. This was a good lesson for me. As Sid tells her, this is the first time I removed my shackles, so you have nothing to be ashamed about, as they shake hands. And as he awkwardly turns to leave, she actually calls out to him and says, who are you really? How did you get to be so strong? As Sid actually answers her honestly and says, I'm merely a fool who abandoned everything in pursuit of strength. And it's here as we see Skull getting dragged away by the guards. She actually asks Sid if he'd want to enlist in government service in Velgalta. As Sid tells her, that world's a little too bright for me. But it's here as we transition back to the Bushin Festival. We see that Iris ain't playing games. She absolutely eviscerated her opponent. It was kind of savage. She is in a bad mood, it seems. But as she's leaving the stadium, we see that Beatrix was watching her match the entire time as she leaves. And it's here we see that Iris ends up chasing her down as she says, I'm sorry to stop you so abruptly. I assume you're Beatrix, the war goddess? as she says, "I am Iris, the crown princess of this kingdom." As Beatrix just suddenly asks her, "You want a sandwich? You'll feel better if you eat one." As Iris is just like, "No, I'm good. Thank you for that." And while our scene does end right there, I imagine that this will continue on into the next episode. And I'm very curious to see those two talk with each other. So I'm looking forward to that. And as we transition back to Sid and we see this walkway that we've seen so many times, we hear, "Man, that went really well. I got to show off my stylish sword skills that I can't use as Shadow. And thanks to Miss not seeing, I managed to accomplish 70% of my Bushin Festival goals." As Sid says, the simple solution would be to win the whole festival, but the most climactic scene is going to be my next battle with Iris. I could defeat the princess and then just disappear. I could announce my work here is done and vanish without a trace like a true Eminence in Shadow. I could also go the evil route. That'd be exciting. Out of nowhere say, "I've come from the shadows to take your life." And then we launch into a no-holds-barred free-for-all. Personally, I want to see that. That'd be fun as hell. As Sid says, "Man, there are still tons of awesome paths to take." As we just hear, "Someone looks happy. Did you have this much fun watching my match too, Sid?" As we see Claire's waiting for him again. As Sid's like, "Oh, I forgot. That's right. I'm dead now." But it's here in our final scene of the episode. We see Oriana one more time as she still has that wrapper with her. As she says, "Please, grant me." As we see she's firming her resolve. And with that, our episode ends. And I kind of already do have an idea what's going to happen, guys, to an extent. But I'm not going to say anything about it until we see it in the show. That's all I'll say right now. But it'll be fun. And man, this episode was, again, just fun, guys. Like I said, I never knew we needed the Sid and Iris stuff until we got it. But now I just want to see more of it. And I'm very glad that they're going to be fighting each other in the next episode, hopefully. Because that'll be exciting. I'd really like to see how that goes. Iris thinks she's hot shit, but she'll get humbled real quick, I'll tell you that. But I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on the episode down below. We only have a couple left, which sucks. It really sucks, but it is what it is. So I would love to hear your thoughts on this episode down below and how you think our season will end soon. But until next time, guys, I hope you have a great day, week, month, and year. And until then, deuces, have a blessed day. Stay safe and stay healthy out there, guys. That's my one thing to you. Stay healthy. But until next time, deuces.